right? Premarital and marital counseling. In the first portion of our notes have information on premarital counseling. But understand, I'm not going to discuss them because we are going to discuss them in the marital counseling. The explanations, all things are there in the marital counseling, but premarital counseling is the format and everything is given there so that you can, when one of your church members or somebody is going to be married and you wanted to give them counsel, what are the areas you need to counsel, right? So that is what mainly talks. So what I simply will show you or take you today through that process of simply. So this is something that I personally use in my counseling for premarital counseling. So basically begins with we need to have both the groom and bride, or maybe the who is going to be married, going to be the bride, going to be the groom. We need to have them both together in a premarital counseling. These days it is easy in premarital counseling. Even people are far, you can have online platform where you can gather together in this counseling, right? So the 5 purposes of premarital counseling. First, we wanted to help you build a solid biblical foundation as you start your marriage. So that is the first thing. We want them to build their marriage on the Bible. Secondly, we want to help you begin a dialogue about your marriage, right? Including communication, finances, sex, parenting, right? Those things are to be discussed. Thirdly, we will point out areas of concern in your relationship. Areas of concerns like conflict, problems, struggles. How do you handle them? Fourthly, we want to preserve you from temptations, right? Yes, now that's an area that many fall. So, for example, maybe I can just to say, a lot of Christian couples do good job preserving themselves from premarital sex, but once they get engaged, they let their guard down and begin falling into sexual temptation. This has happened in many cases. So after the engagement, people get into sex, which is also adultery, right? So their rationale is like that. We are engaged, which means we are practically married already, or we will be married soon. So what does it matter, right? So that is the question that people ask, and they fall into temptation. So how we can manage that, how can we get away from or keep ourselves away from temptations. Fifth, we want to prepare for the marriage and not just the wedding day, right? Wedding day is not so important, but the marriage is important. Marriage is for lifelong, right? So that is what we wanted to give. So usually session 1, what we will do, we will take them through the theology of marriage. So generally we have 4 sessions in a marriage counseling. So that means, what do you need to do? You need to assign them certain scriptures, right, before session 1, right? You need to give them. Those things are given here. And also be sure to turn the premarital inventory to the pastor at least a day or 2 days before. So we need to develop premarital inventory, the details of spouses, right? And the key ideas in the discussion is going to be, as image bearers, men and women have equal dignity and value in God's eyes, right? That is one of the topic we'll be discussing. And number two, men and women were created with the different roles. Husband and wife are called to leave their family of origin and to cleave to their new spouse. And what does that mean? Right? The relationship between Christ and the church models for husbands and wives how they are to relate to one another. Right? So those theological areas are going to be discussed. And of course, we give them certain verses to study and write it down. So a list of verses are given there. Scripture study guide for biblical theology of marriage, something. And these are all simple and there's nothing to explain. And so usually what they do, they need to explain what this text says and how it is connected to marriage, right? So that is the first area, all right? And then exercises for biblical theology of marriage, session 1. Remember I told you that you need to give certain verses, certain questions before they come for the session. So questions about leaving our family of origin, right? What does that mean? How does it apply, right? So the first question is, in what ways you still cleave to your parents, right? So there are questions to be asked. How does these things need to change before getting married? So these are all practical, but they need to write it down. And who in your extended family is going to struggle with your transition into marriage? Like, who is going to suffer more? Maybe someone is depending on you. Maybe mother, maybe father, maybe a brother. So who is going to struggle more when you get into married? After you get married, what are your expectations for your relationship with your in-laws? Right? What are your expectations? Because these questions are so important to ask, to write, to be written, to be discussed. Right? After you get married, what are your expectations for your relationship with your parents? How things are going to be, how you will deal with your parents. Are they going to rule you again? Are they going to master you again? Are you going to be under their leadership? That is a main problem in our culture. We don't understand the biblical point of the marriage. We have our children getting married and we want them to be under us all the time. Still we want to rule our children. After the marriage, you don't rule your children, right? They are free. They are separate. They are, right? What rules, traditions, events, or other things are important to your family, right? Maybe, as far as culture is concerned, what are things? So those things are very important. Second thing in this first session itself is meditating on your vows, right? Help them to understand what is the vow that they are going to take. Here is a chance to consider your wedding vows, right? Write a sentence or to explain each statement's meaning and talk it over with your fiance. So here is a vow. So what does that mean? I dash take you dash to be wedded husband or wedded wife. What does that mean? Discuss. To have, to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, discuss. Better or worse, richer or poor, discuss. Sickness and in health, discuss about it. The man's vow to lead, love, and cherish, discuss. The woman's vow, love, cherish, to obey, discuss. Each phrase has to be discussed between these two individuals. And it says, till death us do depart. Discuss about it, right? Discuss about. So, and according to God's holy ordinance, and therefore I pledge you myself, right? So, yes, friend, this is a marital vow I know that most of the guys who are going to be married, then not even they care the covenant that they make. They don't even care the covenant that they make, right? Because it's just they want to go through the motion because they want to get the marriage over, which is sad. Wedding, that is the reason I say wedding day is not so important. The marriage is important, right? And maybe we have the tradition of exchange of rings, right? We do exchange. So if you prefer rings, that's okay. If you're not, that's okay. But yes, with this ring, I thee wed with all my worldly goods, I thee endow. What does that mean? In the name, all right? What does that mean? You need to discuss, explain, discuss, because the vows are so important. It's like it's a covenant that you make in the presence of God between both of you. So this is very important. Vows are very important. We have to discuss. So that is basically we have in these vow section, right? And then part 3 in this, put your strength and sins and your future marriage, all right? Your strength and your sins, right? Pursue the list of people below and ask them the questions. These are the questions need to be asked in a marriage counseling. What strengths do I bring into marriage? Like maybe, yes, I'm a breadwinner and I have an income or whatever. Right? What do you think there will be good things about being married to me? All right, why you think that I am the best person? And what are the weaknesses? What are the primary sins? Right? Basically here, openly we are talking. We want each, because it is not that, people learn about each other after the marriage. It's always good to know each other before the marriage, where we are, where we stand, and what kind of person this is, so that at least we can avoid some of the marriages that those people should not have been married. All right, what do you think will be the hardest part being married to me? Right, so answer them. And so there are a lot of questions, right? Questions. So these questions should be answered. These are all first session in a premarital counseling. So as a counselor, your responsibility is going to be to go through the list, think about it, what is the right kind of answers. Maybe you make your own answers and make a copy for them so that they will make their answers and discuss it, right? So that is session number 1. Session number 2, a theology of communication. Right, so yes, be sure to finish scripture study, reading exercise before session 2. So you need to give some other portions to read, portions to study, exercise before session 2 begins. So now you talked about communication. Maybe the problem is all right, numbering is the problem, all right? That I may have to. Yeah, maybe I can do that right here. Okay. The goal of communication, what are the things, and spiritual guide or scriptural guide for biblical communication. So discuss, right? Now, again, as a counselor, remember, we are going to talk about communication in the future, right? In detail. So you're going to have a lot of information on this topic, but I want you to understand Yes, you are going to discuss about communicating, how a husband and wife should communicate, verses for and instructions, and all those things are given in the notes that you can use in your counseling session. And another thing, how do you work through conflict, right? Conflict will be there, right? So with your fiancé, choose either a problem that is unresolved or something that was recently solved, right? You got in contact, now you're going to get married with this girl or this boy. Did you, in between, was there a problem? Yeah. How did you solve that problem? Right? So there is a problem solving or conflict solving questions. What was the problem? What was each of you coveting or desiring or hoping for in that problem? And what point did you get disappointed? Did you really understand fiance's perspective? What are typical rules or engagement in a fight? What sins do you need to own up and confess to God? Right. So these are the things, right? Communication, problem solving, very, very important in the in this counseling process, premarital counseling. How do you? So what we are doing here, we are preparing a boy and girl to begin a family life. To begin a family life. That's what. So the theology of communication is extremely important in our discussion. Third is theology of sexuality. All right. Again, you have certain portions to be given to, right? That is, you can see following those portions are to be assigned, right? Key ideas that are going to be discussed. Physical attraction and physical intimacy are a gift from God and a blessing to be enjoyed in marriage. Intimacy and attraction, right? Attraction. These are it ought to be enjoyed within the boundary of marriage, right? Yes. So healthy biblical sexuality involves physical, emotional, relational, and spiritual intimacy, right? It is a package. So we will have to discuss that. Couple sex life and picture a sign of the emotional, relational, spiritual state of the marital union, right? This is a sex life is really a mark of something. So, mark of a unity or mark of a problem that is going on in their family life. Yes. So that has to be extremely important that we discuss. So scriptural study for biblical sexuality. Well, we're going to discuss about that also in the future classes. Maybe here are some portions. Portions are given from Song of Solomon, right? That's a portion that we are going to use in this, right? And then First Peter chapter 3, verse 1 to 7. What is the true beauty? What is precious? What is worthy to God? Those kinds of questions, right? And then First Corinthians chapter 6, right? Two kinds of union, of believers and unbelievers. What are these two unions? Why are they significant? So these verses are to be discussed. Then First Corinthians 7 is another passage that Paul discussed about why should each man have a wife and each wife have a husband? Why should? What does Paul mean by conjugal rights, right? That is the point to be discussed there. Marital duty, yes. Or, what is that? We will be discussing that in our class, right? We are not going to hide away discussing these topics, but topics will come, then we will discuss. All right, so those questions are to be asked and exercise for biblical sexuality. The assignments are this. Yes, every couple must make decision about what level of discussion about sex is appropriate before marriage, right? So that is individual. So go through that. And of course, you counsel with your wives, right? Husband and wife together sit and counsel, right? We don't do this counsel alone, right? It is together, right? Husband and wife sit together and counsel about that. And I know that there are times in olden times I thought this may be unnecessary, but then later I learned that people don't know really biblical perspective of sex. People don't know. We wanted to teach them because this is biblical, this is holy, this is pure within the boundary of marriage, and it should be talked about not to those small kids, but to the adults who are going to be married, right? Yes, so we'll talk about. And there is one thing as a part of this premarital counseling is interviewing a friend. So interview with a married friend. So that means boy will interview another married mature man. Girl will interview another married mature woman. Separate, right? So it is encouraged. Questions are here. These questions have to be asked and answers have to be written, right? Very practical questions. So a good number of questions are there. And so I think the first level of questions are, yes, questions for the groom to ask a married man. These many questions. And the questions for the bride to ask a married woman are this many questions, right? Questions are there. So they wanted to ask a spiritually matured married woman or man, right? So that is third. So you have theology of marriage, theology of communication, theology of sex. And then the fourth session is going to be theology of, we call theology of everything else. Love, money, forgiveness, and children, right? So that is also, we have some key ideas. Assignments are given that should be discussed for that session. Key ideas, the essence of marital love is commitment, not emotion. Marital relationship is not an emotional relationship, it is a commitment, right? Money is primary way to give expression to what it is important to you. Money, where do you spend money shows what is important to you. Where do you spend money more shows what is important to you. We forgive our spouse because God has forgiven us. Children are a blessing from the Lord. These are the key ideas we are going to discuss in this, right? So portions for study is given there. One is 1 Corinthians 13, 2 Corinthians 8, Matthew 18, Psalm 127 about children, and exercise for the discussion. So like making a budget. Going to get married, you should know how to make a budget. Okay, how much you get, how much you should give to the Lord, how much you should give to the Lord, how much you should spend for your family, how much you should save. You should save. You should save. It's not sinful saving money. Some people think like that. Oh, God will take care. Why should I? You're a fool if that is the way you think. That's not the way. You should know your income. You should learn to live within the means. If your income is less, don't think that, okay, I can borrow somebody else's money and live. So making a budget, right? So go through the instruction. What do you learn about your priorities and values by looking at your budget? What are your guidelines, philosophy for how you will tithe? How much? 10%, 20%? How much do you give to the church? How much you will save? Right? Always the rule of thumb is that at least 10%, at least I would say, should be given to the church of your income. If you have more money, you can do that more. Like if you're highly salaried. But if you are a very low income person, at least 10%. And I always say, you also save at least 20% for your saving. And then rest of the money, you put a budget and how you spend them, right? That's the way it should go. It depends upon people, because some people have lakhs of rupees income on a month can give not 10%, maybe more than that or much more than that, right? You have more income, you can give more money to the church for the ministry, right? So I know people give 30, 40, 50% of their income for the ministry, because they know that how much they need for their future. Because some people think that our children should never work. Our children should never work. Our children should have always a lot of money. So you work hard, you don't give to the Lord, you don't do anything, but you provide for your children. And when you go to the eternity, when you meet Jesus, you end up nothing. Because you provided for your children, you're not going to be rewarded. You're not going to be rewarded. So should you provide? Yes, I'm saying yes. You should be reasonably thinking about that, providing for you. Okay, my inheritance after we die, whatever we possess, like maybe we have a land or whatever, it is for our children. Absolutely, yeah, it should be for your children. Your children should never kiss bad. Don't think that everything that you make should go for your children. If that is the case, your idol is your children. That's the reason you do that. You love children more than Jesus. So questions to be considered and other practicals. And not only budget, family schedule, right? How many hours you work, how many days you work, what is there a day that you husband and wife can alone spend? Yeah, always children are with you, right? Why don't you both spend some time together alone? Go to a place, maybe go to a coffee shop or restaurant, right? Where there's nobody else, no disturbance, where you both talk, share your hearts, and strengthen your relationship. So establish family schedule. Don't think that everything will be okay, everything is normal. Yeah, we are fine. No, not fine. Communication, right? We'll talk about the communication as we go. So organize your family schedule. Do you have, when you will have family devotion, right? How much hours you will work for the church, right? For example, here, I have, sleep. How many hours you sleep per week? How many hours you work per week? And church-related matters, how many hours you will spend? Man, if you look at some people, zero. They have nothing for church, right? Only for sleep and work, or for some entertainment. Now, maybe some entertainment or some other things. How many hours per week? So you consider some of the questions here. How much sleep you need? How much work you should do? How much church-related activities you do? Was there any surprise that you about your schedule that you did not, right? What are the things you need to adjust? So those things are here. All right. So friends, This is what a premarital counseling will look like. Premarital counseling. So 4 sessions that we will consider in the premarital counseling that you should do. Right. So go through them as you get the notes. And we are going to look at from tomorrow onwards. All right.